Recording in progress.
Oops, sorry about that. Some technical issues. 1 second. Again, thank you so much for joining us today to celebrate the historic victory of Proposition 308, which would allow Dreamers to pay the same in-state tuition at Arizona universities and colleges as their peers. As of this morning, the yes on 308 is leading with 61,164 votes, with less than 170,000 ballots outstanding, according to the Secretary of State. And given that yesterday's tabulation of more than 98,000 ballots in Maricopa and 11,000 in Pima County resulted in a net increase of votes for Prop 308, we are confident of this victory, and these results won't change. Our last tracking poll shows that we won because we won 81% of Democrats, 53% of independents, and 27% of Republicans. What this shows is that there is a broad bipartisan consensus for immigration solutions. In the face of 100 million anti-immigrant ads nationally, and a third of those ads, or $38 million, spent in Arizona alone. In the face of all of this fear and division, there is a broad bipartisan consensus about immigration solutions. So now it is time for Congress to act for Dreamers and farm workers before the end of the year. I just want to take a moment and deeply thank our Arizona senators, Mark Kelly, Kristen Sinema, Congressman Ruben Gallego, Leader Taran, our House sponsors, Republican Michelle Yuda, House Speaker Rusty Bowers, Senators Boyer, Heather Carter, the entire Democratic caucus, Mayor Giles. Really deeply thank our broad bipartisan coalition. You will hear from many of them today. David Adame of CPLC, Alex Gomez, Lucha, Reina Montoya Aliento for her years of leadership, Mi Familia Vota, Carolina Unidos, Dream.us, President's Alliance, the Chambers, the business leaders, Elder Anderson, Dr. Crow, John Graham, ASU, Arizona Wins, One Arizona. Special thank you to our team at ABEC Action, our Deputy Director Rovika, Comms Director Ben, Carlos, and the entire team who poured their hearts and soul into this campaign. Lastly, deeply thank the thousands of Dreamers who led and organized, like Hazel and Deanna, who cannot vote but courageously share their stories again and again to move hearts and minds. We invested over $6 million in comms, in ads, and field and coalition building to reach over 4 million voters. We want to thank thousands of you who gave your treasure and your time. This bipartisan vote in Arizona shows the way forward for the Congress for Dreamers and farm workers before the end of this year. Now, I am honored to introduce the founder and CEO of Zenni Homes, the former Arizona Republican State Senator and ABEC co-chair, Bob Worsley. Bob?
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm Bob Worsley, retired Arizona Republican State Senator and co-chair of the American Business Immigration Coalition. Ever since defeating the then Senate President Russell Pierce in the Republican primary for state Senate in 2012, I've been working to build bridges between immigrants and politicians to strengthen the economy. Due to declining birth rates, our nation's businesses and our GDP growth depend on first-generation immigrants who come here to improve their lives and work hard. This dialogue is not what the far right wants to hear, so they continue to preach fear and racial division. The slate of far right candidates for U.S. Senate in Arizona, the governor of Arizona, the Arizona Secretary of State, the Attorney General, all that Donald Trump endorsed look like they might all lose in a massive display of reasonableness by Arizona voters. Just 16 years ago, Prop 300 passed with over 70% of Arizona voters in support. Later, SB 1070 passed, which harassed the immigrant community. But now with the majority of Arizona voters, Prop 308 will pass today, and I am proud of Arizona and how far we have come. A majority of Democrats and a significant number of independents and Republicans voted to change the Constitution to treat immigrants brought to the United States as children with dignity and humanity. It is now time for our federal government in Washington to follow Arizona's example and pass the DREAM Act and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act this year. Our broad bipartisan Prop 308 coalition secured endorsements from President Obama to Republican governor candidate Karen Taylor Robson, from Senators Kelly and Sinema to Republican State House Speaker Rusty Bowers. Our campaign also involved the hard work and determination of many of the very Arizona students directly impacted by Prop 308, one of whom I have the honor to introduce to you today, Hazel Villatoro, who graduated from high school a year early last spring and today is a college freshman. Now we'll hear from Hazel.
Good morning. I'm Hazel Villatoro, an undocumented student from Mexico who was raised in Arizona with my siblings and parents. I came here at the age of 1, and I've lived here my whole life, doing the same activities and attending school like any other Arizonan student. My brother attended ASU, got his master's in education, his bachelor's in business. My sister is attending ASU to eventually become a surgeon. My siblings have always been my biggest role models, so I wanted to follow into their footsteps. Coming out of high school, I realized the many difficulties that I had due to my status. I questioned whether I was going to be able to apply or afford school, since it was 3 times the amount my siblings paid. This didn't stop me from working hard. I attended many honors and dual enrollment classes, even though I couldn't receive those college credits. I was not able to get into ASU, but I am now currently a student at Grand Canyon University. Gratefully, many doors to higher education have opened for me. I no longer have to pay 3 times more for tuition. This is because Prop 308 passed, giving me the same opportunity as any other Arizonan student. I will now be able to attend medical school with my sister to pursue my dream to become an anesthesiologist. I want to thank the voters of Arizona for doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel. Just so you know, Hazel is a leader with Lucha. And we're so grateful for her leadership, and we're so grateful that she shared her story with us so courageously. I'm Ravika Rajkishan. I'm the Deputy Director at ABEC and ABEC Action. Thank you all so much for being here today. I just wanted to say that we always knew this campaign was going to be close. The polling we did told us that over and over again. So we launched this unprecedented media effort, which included broadcast ads reaching 93% of households in the state, programmatic digital video ads delivering 6.5 million impressions, and social media ads delivering 6.8 million impressions targeting younger and swing voters. We also contributed to a massive field program, and you'll hear from Alex, from Lucha, and Carolina from Mi Familia Vota, for a paid canvas that knocked nearly 4 million doors, made 3.3 million texts and phone calls, and successfully contacted over 1 million voters, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. This is all resulted in an extraordinary bipartisan coordinated winning campaign that we're confident that it will win today. As a formerly undocumented person, someone who calls streamers family members and my closest friends, it was an honor to work on this campaign and to work with leaders like Tyler Montague, chair of the Prop 308 campaign. And I will turn it over to Tyler now so you can hear from him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravika. Can you see me? I'm so excited. I finally allowed myself to celebrate that we're going to win. I I just had to manage this emotionally and be careful. But what a big win! Been working on this for years and years. We wouldn't have this without Reina Montoya and Jose Patino at Aliento, who had been working on this, and I loved joining my efforts with them to get it through. And then ABIC joined and made huge contributions, and we just kept asking other people to join, and we ended up with this wonderful coalition of so many important supporters who lent us their time, their money, their expertise, and in many cases their reputations, and they staked it with us. And I'm unbelievably happy about this. The people that were there and made sacrifices, many of these legislators that supported us were viciously attacked in their campaigns, and had, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent against them, and were attacked for helping us. Excuse me. The emotion of the moment's overcoming me a little bit. But what a good thing to do. And I just want to thank our sponsors in the legislature: Paul Boyer, TJ Shope, Sean Bowie, Michelle Udall. They all sacrificed and lent us their reputation, their time. Joel John, Tyler Pace, David Cook, Joanne Osborne. Every member of the Democratic caucus was there for us. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Karen Taylor Ropes and Matt Sam and Rusty Bowers, others who came out, Leah Marquez Peterson, John Giles, Mayor Gallego. I better stop because there were so many that were so important to us. One of the most important leaders of this effort was CPLC, probably the single largest donor. And so I'll introduce David Adami, the CEO of CPLC, and a very critical advocate for us, who made a huge difference. And without their help, we would not have had this win. David, thank you. Let me give the time to you.
All right, thank you, Tyler, and I feel the love, and I really appreciate all that you did and being a leader and using your network to bring other people to the table. And my name is David Adame. I'm the president and CEO of Chicanos por la Causa. We're one of the nation's largest Hispanic community development corporations, and I'm proud all that we've accomplished during this campaign, and proud to be with you today. I also want to thank the Arizona voters, all the legislators who helped bring this to the table, including Heather Carter, Senator Heather Carter, who actually lost her seat because they came after her when she tried to do this last year. So thank you to Heather Carter as well. And I've got to thank our team. We've been champions for immigrants for a long time, including being a longtime proponent of the DREAM Act, which we're hoping that's the next step. But when we spent in this cycle to get out the Latino vote, it was called Latino Loud, was the name of the campaign. So we spent about $10 million. I don't say that's not spent. We invested, for our community's sake, $10 million to get the vote out. And I'm getting some preliminary info that it was a record turnout for Latino voters. We also spent an additional $1.1 million for Prop 308, and also to support the ABIC for Action effort here. They did a fantastic job. We're all super proud of that. We also work with other groups, the Phoenix Chamber, AFL-CIO, the Economic Councils, GPEC, GPL, Sun Corridor, SALT, NALA. We're involved in all of those, and we kept pushing to make sure that they understood that this was an investment in Arizona, and if we got this across the finish line, Arizona wins. And today, I'm super proud that Arizona has won. We're gonna invest in these young students, and they're only going to pay us back. The return on investment is going to be huge for Arizona, and the workforce, everything we need, is going to be supported with this great victory. So again, I want to thank everybody and know that CPLC was all in and didn't hold back anything we could do to help with this thing. So thank you. I'm proud of all the canvassers, Familia Bota, all those partners that we worked with to try to knock on so many doors. Again, we're hearing that over 400,000 Latino voters came, which is a record turnout, and it's making a big difference in the elections this year. So now I'd like to turn it over to Alex Gomez from Lucha, another partner. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It truly was a united effort to ensure that Prop 308 made it across the finish line strong. And so I just want to thank all of the partners. And overall, Prop 308, our campaign had many field partners knocking on doors, making phone calls, deploying and targeting text message programs like Lucha, Chicanos por la Causa, Aliento, Mi Familia Vota, Chispa, Arizona, Arizona Asian Americans, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders for Equity Coalition, Arizona Center for Empowerment, Aguila, Corazon, and many other organizations that belong to the One Arizona and Arizona Wins tables. All of those partners coming together to bring this historic victory across the finish line, were able to accomplish 3.6 million door knocks, 1.4 million text and phone attempts, 73,531 text and phone contacts. Canvassing efforts were statewide. We were in every single corridor across the state. In this election cycle, Lucha, our Latino GOTV efforts were the largest ever. And we wanted to make sure that we left it all out on the field. So this election season, Lucha was able to relaunch our Lucha Blue campaign, which this year knocked on over 400,000 doors. That means every single conversation mattered. And what we're showing is that our communities listened and voiced their vote at the polls. We made over 100,000 calls asking voters to turn out. And also Lucha ran its largest digital, radio, billboard, print ad, and largest Latinx voter across the battleground state of Arizona that generated more than 13 million impressions. These ads included unique Spanish and English radio spots in more than 7 radio stations, 25 digital billboards targeting the Latinx community in Pima, Cochise, Coconino, and Yuma counties, including 110 of our first edition Lucha Times newspaper, and distributed over 150,000 voter guides. So thank you to everyone that supported to make this victory possible. Yes on 308 Coalition. And I'm happy to turn it over to John Graham, Chairman and CEO of SunTrust Holdings. You're on mute, John.
That's better, right? Thank you. Hello, I'm John Graham. I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you why Prop 308 is important to me as an employer and someone who cares deeply about the future of Arizona. This ballot referendum was one of the most important votes on the ballot. In Arizona alone, there are more than 36,000 DACA eligible residents, 95% of whom are employed. Prop 308 will help fortify the state's future economic growth by encouraging all of our talented students to build their careers here. And that begins with fair in-state college tuition rates. Our Arizona DACA eligible population has a total spending power of $618 million, and Arizona Dreamers create nearly $800 million in household income and pay $180 million in taxes, 87 million of that being state and local taxes. And as our state continues to face labor shortages in key areas like healthcare and talented workers with degrees are needed more now than ever, Prop 308 is so important, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the smart thing to do for our state's economy. And now I'm looking to my friends, Senators Sinema and Kelly, to lead on a DREAM Act in Washington, D.C. this year to provide a permanent path to citizenship for our dreamers. Arizonans have voted for humane bipartisan solutions, and this is the year to get it done. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Carolina Rodriguez-Greer, Arizona State Director for Mi Familia Vota. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Carolina Rodriguez-Greer, and I have the pleasure of serving as the State Director with Mi Familia Vota here in Arizona, an organization that works an organization that works to build Latino political power through year-round voter engagement, advocacy, education, registration, and mobilization. It's an honor to be here with you all today. As someone who immigrated as a child to the United States and worked for many years as an educator, I believe immigration status should not have anything to do with receiving a quality education that can help grow someone's potential. In fact, some of you may know Proposition 300 is the very thing that got me involved civically as a student. And so even having this conversation today still doesn't feel real. And it's very encouraging and a great sign of things to come. The passage of Proposition 308 is a great source of hope for me and for the future of our great state. We know it took over 16 years to get where we are now, working to pass a proactive measure to support our young people of Arizona. And this year, we did what we do best at Mi Familia Vota. We persuaded and empowered Latinos, immigrant, and allied communities to vote yes on Proposition 308. Mi Familia Vota this year registered over 35,000 voters across Arizona and knocked on over 200,000 doors. And I couldn't agree more with Alex. Every conversation absolutely mattered. Together with our partners on the ground, we reached over 1 million voters. And this victory could not have happened without the on-the-ground coalition partners who tirelessly knocked on millions of doors, not only in this cycle, but every cycle to transform politics in Arizona. We will continue to do the work. And even as we celebrate today, we know that we are not done. We want full federal protection for our dreamers, our families, so that we can fully live our lives in Arizona and in this country that we all call home. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Carolina. Thank you to all of our speakers. So we'll open it up for press questions. I see there are 4 questions. The first question is from KPAR. Was there any sense for you during this process that about the outcome? And I'll just start in terms of our poll tracking has been incredibly consistent. We were getting nearly 80% of support from Democrats, 53% from independents, and nearly 30% of Republicans in support of this measure. I think David, Bob, Alex mentioned earlier, everyone from President Obama to Republican gubernatorial candidate Karen Taylor Robson, House Speaker Rusty Bowers to Senator Sinema were all in support of this issue because it was economically important and morally right. And so we were incredibly hopeful, but we left it all on the field and made sure that this got to the finish line. I'll open it up to others to, if you have any response to this question, Bob or Alex, David.
Yeah, I'd love to share. As we were out on the doors knocking since after the primary, what we found is that every single conversation was a positive conversation for Prop 308. And in many cases, what we also found was that Prop 308 was the leading issue at the doors that was motivating voters. And so that's incredibly encouraging, not only for Arizona and for our democracy, but it is also incredibly encouraging for this moment that we're in nationally, where Arizona continues to lead the country in historic shifts in the political tides. And so that really marks this moment of, at a federal level, the country is also ready to support our immigrant communities and being able to see legislation in favor of our immigrant communities.
Hey, Rebecca, one of the things I'd like to add is, and I got a lot of hits back on social media that we were participating in. One of my concerns was the misinformation about that this was going to add to taxes, that this was a subsidy, that there was shortcuts for these students that were working hard. We had to really work hard to make sure that that message was loud and clear, that there was no subsidy, there was no shortcuts, there was no special treatment. All we were asking for was the opportunity to pay, emphasize pay, in-state tuition, and that's what the state university said was the price of an education was. So that concerned me a little bit, but even up to the day of the election, I was getting some horrible messages on social media of what this was all about, and really, you know, doing something special versus for citizens, and that was totally wrong. But I'm glad we got it across the finish line.
Rebecca, I would just like to add to David's comment here. I think back in 2006, when this was 70% voted to take away all benefits from those without documentation, and the fact that we are landing probably in the 51% range now, we are not there yet. This is a pivotal moment, though, where we took 70% of the voters and the mood has shifted to 51% to help and not be anti-immigrant in our Arizona mood. I can say that Tyler can verify that when we first started looking at this, it looked like we were over 60% support. But the dialogue and the negative, to show you how easy it is to move public opinion to a negative direction, we got moved a good 10 points down to this 51% point because of all the rhetoric you see in political campaigns that are running on an anti-immigrant platform again. So this is a delicate and a very important point for us to be stable and help Arizona continue to move away from being extreme on anti-immigrant feelings and move to a positive, and now hopefully build on this 51% and hopefully get to 70%, where there's a positive feeling of camaraderie and brotherhood in the state of Arizona between the immigrant community and those who were here before. Thank you.
Well, something encouraging there is that still in our polls, if we just ask people, should Dreamers pay more or the same, we're still getting 2/3 to say the same. So, you know, somewhere in the ballot language, we confuse, 12 to 15% of the people. But, make no mistake, sentiment has changed. It went from 70-30 to now almost flipped, where 2/3 realize that was a bad mistake, that these are great kids that are contributing to our community. And I think our political leadership should take this as a sign that we should move forward with smart reforms. And we think that Prop 308's victory is a milestone and an inflection point. This is the first time we've reversed the anti-immigrant agenda. We've stopped it before, but now we're reversing it and doing some smart things here.
Thank you so much, Tyler. The next question is, Prop 300 passed in 2006 with a wide margin. What's the difference now that led to Prop 308 passing? And maybe I'll hand it over to Carolina, since her point talked about how she started her leadership with Prop 300. So go ahead, Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the country was also in a very different place, right? This was the middle of the Bush administration in 2006, the midterm election. And, in doing so much work to educate folks, specifically educators, about Proposition 300, a lot of folks, and I only have anecdotal data, but the way that these propositions were written, they said, I had no idea that that's what I was voting for. Right? I never meant to create a barrier for these young people. And so I think what Proposition 308 allowed was a wider conversation about what do we want to do for our neighbors, for our people, for our state. And so, I think our country at that point when Proposition 300 was on the ballot, we were in a very different place. And I think, we have to, I know I certainly will be processing this a lot about what does this mean? What kind of conversations can we now have with our neighbors about how do we want to help each other out? And so I think we have a lot of processing to do, but I think this recent experiment with Prop 308, I hope serves as a starter so that Arizona can show the rest of the country that we can have, while difficult, right? These conversations maybe, let's still have them because good things can happen. And like I keep telling everybody, Arizona is not, the only thing extreme about Arizona is our weather. Our people are not extremes. We're here for each other. And I think Proposition 308 is a good sign of things to come. And I hope the rest of the country is paying attention, because if we can do it here, I'm very optimistic about what we can do in other places.
Great. Thank you so much, Carolina. The next question I have, I don't know if DJ is still on. It's about the math. Can you clarify the math on your projected win? Is it official or just projected? And I just really want to thank DJ, who's been our incredible warrior and leader on this. And go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. So it's a projected victory. As Rebecca mentioned earlier, there's about 170,000 total ballots left to count in the state of Arizona, with a 61,000 vote lead. And as I mentioned earlier, or Rebecca mentioned earlier, we actually gained votes on the yes side yesterday after over 110,000 ballots were counted. So the math is just very, very difficult to see Proposition 308 failing at this point. Obviously, we want every vote to be counted and are watching the process. But at this point, victory is all but assured, and we do not expect the margin actually to shift very much. Yesterday, the ballot counting resulted in a small gain overall of about 1,000 votes for the yes side. So. We're optimistic to see more results here early this week, but feel very good.
Thank you so much, DJ. The next question is, how do you think that this proposition will affect the larger national push for permanent protections for Dreamers? Maybe I'll start John Graham and then open it up to everyone. Oh, John, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, this is probably one of the maybe the most important thing in my political life to have behind us, and such a positive outcome. And it's been such a pleasure to work on the campaign. Everybody involved has been incredibly helpful and supportive. And again, I just have had a big happy face the last 24 hours, and it'll stay that way, I'm sure, after we get the final results. So thank you for everybody for all you've done, and it's a great victory. Thanks so much.
Great. I'm wondering if Alex or David want to answer this in terms of the national implications you see here.
Yeah, in my opinion, there was a message sent, across the country when you're seeing, from election deniers and others, that I think people are a little wary of the negative campaigns, the whole Trump negative. And I think, but we still have a lot of work to do. We need to change the narrative, talk about the contributions of the Latino community, our purchasing power, some great stuff that the group Latitude has done, where if you took all the Latinos together in the United States, they'd be the 5th largest economy in the world. So we're the future. We're the only cohort that's growing, adding to the GDP. So I think we have, this is a great positive step, but we can't be sleeping at the wheel and not think that it's over. We need to keep pushing, change the narratives. Things like we did at Chicanos por la Causa, we supported a musical on Broadway that talked about a dreamer's life and how positive he's done since then. And we need to keep doing other things like that to keep the momentum going. And I truly believe and have faith in this country that people are more compassionate. This country was built on immigrants, but we need to do our work to make sure that our story is being told correctly, and not that we're all, murderers and rapists and things that's been put out there in the campaigns today. So that's what I think.
I absolutely agree. This is Alex. And what I will say is that we need to also do year-round organizing and invest in it. The reason that Arizona's politics have shifted, and the reason that we were able to be a front lines stronghold for democracy and a model for how a state can go from being a state of hate to now a state that has passed a measure like Prop 308 is because of the year-round organizing. Us investing every single day to make sure that voters are included, educated, but also connected and in relationship with one another and with the grassroots community organizations. So I would love to emphasize also that what we also saw in this election is that Latinos are paying attention. Voters are paying attention to who's standing with them. And so they're not falling on party line. What they're doing is actually exercising scrutiny and really critically thinking about the responsibility that they hold in voting and taking that very seriously. And so with that, I applaud the historic turnout and the efforts of our communities and voters. And I also celebrate all of the work that was done by the grassroots community organizations that came together to knock on so many millions of doors to ensure that our communities knew where to go vote and ensured that they had a vote plan to be ready to vote.
Rebecca, if I could just make a comment. Arizona is a bellwether for the nation. It's almost the canary in the mine. And what we saw happen with SB 1070 and what then became, I call it in my book that I wrote, the horseshoe virus. This virus had infected the body politic in Arizona in the 2000 era with Russell Pierce leading the way. And it was a harbinger of what was going to happen when Donald Trump came into office in the nation. And so I think this proposition and winning in Arizona is evidence that the virus has passed. We've healed. We are able to function with our neighbors with love and concern and humanity. And this is a bellwether for the United States government, the Congress, to act this way, to understand that this is a bad path. It's a hateful and a bad way to govern, to be demeaning members of our society based on race or documentation status, etc. And it's time to do the right thing in Washington. So I think this is a huge message from Arizona to Washington, D.C., that it's time to pass DACA. It's time to pass the farm worker bill and other reforms that are necessary to be fair to this whole entire population that lives in our country, that is going to work every day, doing essential services during COVID, dying literally in meatpacking plants and other places, working shoulder to shoulder when people were infecting each other. They were still going to work and doing the work that had to be done in America. It's time to change this in DC, and Arizona is the bellwether. Arizona is the example, and it's time to make a change in DC.
Thank you so much. The last two questions. So one is for Carolina. Carolina, if you can speak in Spanish about declaring the victory at this moment and what you saw in the Latino vote.
Claro que sí. Ahorita estamos muy optimistas que los resultados el día de hoy sobre la propuesta 308 sugieren que esta propuesta se puede pasar, y eso significa un triunfo muy grande para la comunidad, no solamente la comunidad inmigrante de Arizona, pero el resto de Arizona, que ahora vamos a poder ayudar que jóvenes tengan oportunidad de seguir con sus estudios universitarios, que sabemos que los va a llevar a oportunidades más grandes de trabajo, de empleos, carreras, que van a contribuir al estado de Arizona. Entonces estamos muy entusiasmados por los resultados que hemos visto hasta el día de hoy sobre la propuesta 308 para apoyar a nuestros jóvenes, pero también apoyar a nuestro estado de Arizona, que todos llamamos casa.
Wonderful. And then for David Adame and also Alex, in Spanish, also in terms of speaking to the Latino vote and particularly young Latinos this election.
Sí, soy David Adame, presidente de Chicanos por la Causa. Estoy muy emocionado que todo el trabajo que todas las organizaciones juntaron para luchar, para sacar la voto latino, y va a ser un una elección muy grande por nuestra comunidad. Más de 400,000 votos de latinos salieron. Es un récord para nuestra comunidad. Y con eso los resultados, como los resultados de 308, la propuesta va a ganar. Y si seguimos, como yo digo, si votamos, ganamos. Y votamos este año y yo estoy muy emocionado y doy muchas gracias a nuestra comunidad que están participando en las elecciones para Arizona.
Mi nombre es Alejandra Gómez, directora ejecutiva de Lucha, y le quiero dar tantas gracias a nuestra comunidad por haber votado, por haber participado. Y lo que hemos visto es que con nuestra participación desde el 2016, la comunidad latina ha tenido participación histórica en cada elección. Y la comunidad latina hace el margen de la victoria para cualquier candidato y propuesta. Y lo que hemos visto en esta elección es que hemos sido el margen de victoria para la propuesta 308. Gracias a ustedes, ahora la comunidad Dreamer va a poder ir a la escuela y recibir la matrícula a costo estatal y va a poder recibir becas. Ustedes como votantes tuvieron el poder y lo ejercitaron. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Alex, David, and Carolina. There is a question I think that's really important about when does this go into effect? Wondering maybe Daniel or DJ. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
It will go into effect upon proclamation by the governor as soon as the state canvass is done. The deadline for which is 4 weeks after the election. So we're hoping here that in the next few weeks this officially becomes the law of the land.
Daniel, can you just identify yourself, please?
Oh, sorry. This is Daniel Ariano. I'm a partner at Herrera Ariano, and we've been the legal counsel to the Prop 308 campaign.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Is there any other questions? I'm trying to see. Thank you all so much. I think we have 2 dozen press on this, both local and national. Oh, there's a new question. Seems like Senator Kelly was avoiding the issue of immigration in his campaign. What are you expecting from him now? Do you feel he recognizes the importance of 308 lifting his campaign? Anyone wants to take this?
This is David. I was on his transition team last time when he won his election for the short term. He just is finishing. But last time he won the Latino vote, 74-26. I'm sure the number is going to be pretty similar. And with that kind of support, any candidate, whether we're talking about Senator Kelly or anybody, needs to pay attention if he wants to continue to receive the support from our community. So I can tell you for sure, Chicanos por la Causa and our action fund, Si Se Vota, is going to be having a lot of conversations and asking the questions, can you be a champion, help get this across the finish line?
Thank you so much, David. And thank you to all of our panelists, our entire coalition. Again, we believe now it is time for Congress to follow Arizona's example and act for a permanent DREAM Act and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. The voters have spoken. The bipartisan consensus coming out of Arizona, a border state, the purple of the purplest state. We saw the only pro-immigrant ballot measure won and all of the anti-immigrant candidates being defeated. This is the year. Let's get it done. I'm so grateful to you all, and we'll see you in DC. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.